She left her phone on the counter. First time in 25 years. Buzz. Another message. Then another. Miss you already. Can't wait for the hotel again. From Rick. That's when I found the hidden album, tucked in a folder labeled Work Presentations, Selfies, Rumpled Sheets. My wife and her boss smiling in bed. On the weekend, she told me she was at a leadership retreat. And the calendar? She'd booked our anniversary to spend with him. When I confronted her, she called me paranoid, said I was suffocating her. But I'm not the one lying in hotel sheets. I've spent my life building systems that don't leak. She forgot I know how to fix things when they blow. Now I've got a dinner reservation, a legal file, and one hell of a guest list. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is David Halbrook, and I'm 50 years old. Every morning, I unlock my HVAC business office before sunrise, just like I have for 25 years. My wife, Beth, once my steady anchor through my father's passing and those early startup days, has changed lately. Her new department head, Rick, keeps her working late, and she's traded her simple style for designer outfits and bold makeup. When I suggested a quiet dinner last week, she dismissed me with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. What she doesn't know is that I've kept every receipt, every text message she thought she deleted. The old anniversary gift sits unopened on my desk, a reminder of simpler times. But let me start from the beginning. You know how patterns sneak up on you? Little things you brush off until they pile up so high you can't ignore them anymore? That's how it started with Beth. The changes came in whispers at first. A new shade of lipstick here, a designer blouse there. Nothing worth mentioning, I told myself. After 25 years of marriage, people are bound to switch things up a bit. But then came the texting. Have you ever watched someone's face light up at their phone and felt your stomach drop? Beth would be doing dishes or folding laundry, and suddenly her phone would buzz. She'd snatch it up like it was made of gold, thumbs flying across the screen, this little smile playing at her lips that I hadn't seen directed at me in months. Work stuff, she'd say, not even looking up. Rick's restructuring the department. Rick. Her new department head. His name kept coming up more and more, usually paired with words like mentoring and career development. I remembered when Beth used to share everything about her day. The office drama, the lunch conversations, all of it. Now, getting details was like pulling teeth. The weekend conferences started in March. At first, it was once a month, then twice, sometimes with only a day's notice. Leadership training, she called them, or team-building retreats. 25 years in business taught me one thing. No company wastes that much money on middle management training. One evening in April, we were sitting in the living room, me with the newspaper, Beth curled up in her armchair with her phone. The sound of her sudden laughter cut through the quiet like a knife. It wasn't her usual laugh. This was different, intimate. She caught me looking and locked her phone so fast you'd think it was on fire. What's so funny? I kept my voice casual, the way you'd ask about the weather. The warmth drained from her face. Just a meme Rick shared in the work group chat. She stood up, smoothing her pants. Why do you always question everything? It's getting old, David. Old. Like me, maybe? The thought crept in before I could stop it. After that, our conversations turned into weather reports, all surface, no substance. When I'd reach for her at night, she'd roll away. Tired, she'd mumble. Big presentation tomorrow. The space between us in bed grew wider than the mattress itself. Then came that night in May. I was in the garage organizing my tools, something I do when sleep won't come. The clock had just struck 11 when I heard Beth's voice floating through the kitchen window. She must have thought I was asleep upstairs because she was using her private call voice, barely above a whisper. Same room as last time? My hands froze on the wrench I was holding. The metal felt ice cold against my palm. A pause. Her laugh. That new, intimate laugh drifted out again. I know. I can't wait either. David's clueless as always. I set the wrench down carefully, making sure it didn't clang against the workbench. My chest felt tight, like someone had cranked a vise around my ribs. The next morning, Beth kissed me goodbye like nothing had changed. She'd packed her overnight bag for another leadership retreat, the third one this month. I watched her pull out of the driveway in her new car, the one she'd insisted on leasing because everyone at work drives something nice. I was pouring my second cup of coffee when I heard it, the buzz of a phone from the kitchen counter, Beth's phone. In 25 years, she'd never forgotten it. Not once. The screen lit up with another message. Then another. My coffee went cold as I stood there, staring at that glowing rectangle like it was a live grenade. You know that moment when you realize your whole world is about to change? When you're standing on the edge of before and after? That's where I was, right there in my kitchen on a Thursday morning, looking at my wife's forgotten phone. I stood there for what felt like hours, just staring at that phone. You know how they say your hands sometimes make decisions before your brain catches up? Mine reached for the phone like they belonged to someone else. Beth's password was still the same one she'd used for years, our anniversary date. Funny how that works, isn't it? The first message preview made my knees weak. Miss you already. Can't wait for the hotel again. From Rick. Simple words that felt like bullets. I opened it, and there were dozens more just like it, stretching back months, each one more intimate than the last. My thumb moved to the photo gallery almost on autopilot. There it was, a hidden album tucked away in a folder marked Work Presentations. The first photo was innocent enough, Beth at some restaurant, raising a wine glass to the camera. But as I scrolled, my world started crumbling piece by piece. Beth and Rick at various hotels. Selfies with rumpled sheets in the background, the two of them looking intimate, happy. The kind of happy she used to be with me. The images burned themselves into my brain like brands. I remembered installing the AC unit in our first apartment, Beth bringing me ice-cold lemonade, both of us laughing about how we couldn't afford proper furniture. Now here she was, in luxury hotels I'd never even heard of, with a man who probably couldn't tell a wrench from a screwdriver. Then I saw Ida calendar entry that twisted the knife even deeper. Anniversary weekend? Booked. Our 25th anniversary was coming up in 3 weeks. She'd planned to spend it with him. I felt the rage building, like pressure in an overcharged system. But 25 years in HVAC taught me one thing. Losing your cool never fixes the problem. It just makes the damage worse. So I took a deep breath, set the phone down exactly where I'd found it, and waited. Beth came home that Sunday evening, floating through the door like she was walking on air. Her makeup was perfect, not a hair out of place. She'd never looked more beautiful or more foreign to me. "We need to talk," I said from my spot at the kitchen table. My voice came out steadier than I expected. She froze for just a second before composing herself. "About what, honey?" "About Rick. About the hotels. About our anniversary plans." The change in her face was like watching a storm roll in. First confusion, then shock, then something harder. "You went through my phone?" Her voice turned to ice. "How dare you invade my privacy like that?" "Your phone was right here on the counter. Messages kept coming in." She laughed, a sharp, ugly sound I'd never heard from her before. "So you just helped yourself? God, David, do you hear yourself? This is exactly why I can't breathe in this marriage anymore. You're suffocating me with your paranoid fantasies." "Paranoid fantasies." I kept my voice level. "I saw the photos, Beth. The messages. Your anniversary booking. You're twisting everything." She was pacing now like a caged animal. "Rick is my mentor. He's helping me grow in my career while you're stuck in the same rut you've been in for decades. When was the last time you tried to understand my world, my ambitions?" The words hit like slaps, each one calculated to wound. This wasn't my Beth anymore. This was someone else wearing her face, speaking with her voice. "I need space," she announced, already heading for the stairs. "I'm going to my sister's. When I get back, we're going to have a real conversation about your obsessive behavior." I watched her pack a bag, moving through our bedroom like I wasn't even there. 10 minutes later, she was gone, leaving nothing but the echo of accusations and the lingering scent of her perfume. That night, I sat in my home office, staring at our wedding photo on the wall. We looked so young, so sure of everything. Beth's smile was real back then, the kind that reached her eyes. I thought about taking the picture down, but something stopped me. Maybe I needed the reminder of what we'd had, to understand what I'd lost. Because this wasn't a mistake or a rough patch. This wasn't something we could fix with counseling or heart-to-heart talks. This was war, and she'd fired the first shot without even giving me a chance to surrender. I sat there for a long time, staring at that wedding photo. Then I remembered Travis Maynard. 3 years back, his furnace died during the worst cold snap in decades. His kids were sick, and he couldn't afford emergency rates. I did the job for free. Took me all night. But I got his family's heat back on. Travis had tried to repay me dozens of times since then, but I always waved him off. Now I needed his help. My hands shook a little as I dialed his number. It was nearly midnight, but Travis picked up on the second ring. "David, everything okay?" "Not really." I cleared my throat. "Remember when you said you owed me one? I'm calling it in." There was a pause then. "Give me 20 minutes, I'll meet you at O'Malley's." The bar was nearly empty when I walked in. Travis sat in a corner booth, 2 beers already waiting. He looked exactly like I remembered. Stocky build, salt and pepper beard, casual blazer that somehow never wrinkled. I slid into the booth and told him everything. When I finished, Travis leaned back, his eyes sharp. "Let me get this straight. She's having an affair with her boss, gaslighting you about it, and planning to spend your anniversary with him?" He let out a low whistle. "And you've got proof on her phone?" "Had proof. She's got it locked down now." "Doesn't matter." Travis was already pulling out a notepad. "We'll get more. You know what I love about cases like this? The guilty ones always get sloppy. They think they're cleverer than everyone else." He looked up at me, grinning. "Let's do this right." The next morning, I hired a private investigator Travis recommended. Cost me nearly $2,000 up front, but what's money when your whole life's imploding? While the PI did his thing, I started my own detective work. Ever since I'd started the business, I'd handled our finances. Beth never paid attention to the books. Her eyes would glaze over at the mention of spreadsheets. Now that worked in my favor. You ever notice how betrayal makes you see everything differently? Like someone adjusted all the settings on your life? I spent hours combing through credit card statements, matching up Beth's work events with hotel charges. Found restaurant bills for 2 at places I'd never heard of. Theater tickets when she was supposed to be at conferences. Meanwhile, Beth's social media lit up like a Christmas tree. You'd think someone who was hiding an affair would lay low, right? Not Beth. Every day brought some new cryptic post. Sometimes the bravest thing is choosing yourself. Freedom isn't free, but it's worth the price. Each one got dozens of sympathetic comments from friends who only knew her side of the story. The PI's first report landed in my email exactly 1 week after I hired him. I opened it at my desk, the same desk where that forgotten anniversary gift still sat. The photos were crystal clear. Beth and Rick walking into the Madison Hotel downtown. His hand on her waist, lingering there like he had every right. Her head thrown back in laughter. That real laugh I hadn't seen in months. You know what's funny? I thought seeing proof would hurt worse. But it was almost relieving. Like finally getting an X-ray that shows exactly where the break is. Now I could stop wondering if I was crazy. Stop doubting myself. Start planning. I walked out to the garage that evening. It had been my sanctuary for years. Tools organized just the way I liked them. Workbench clear and ready. But now it felt cluttered. Suffocating. I started pulling everything off the shelves, sorting through decades of accumulated stuff. Found birthday cards Beth had given me, love notes from happier days, photos of vacations we'd taken. Travis called while I was in the middle of filling a donation box. "PI just sent me copies of everything," he said. "You doing okay?" I looked around at the half-empty garage, at the piles of memories I was clearing out. "Yeah," I said, surprising myself by meaning it. "I'm doing okay." "Good, because we're just getting started. Come by my office tomorrow morning. I've got some ideas you're going to love." 2 days later, I was back in Travis's office when the second PI report hit his inbox. Travis's face darkened as he read, his jaw clenching tighter with each scroll. "David," he said finally, "you need to see this." He turned his monitor around. There were transcripts from Beth's work email, somehow accessed through legal channels I didn't want to know about. My eyes caught fragments. Can't take his controlling behavior anymore. Always questioning where I am. Emotional manipulation for years. My coffee went cold in my hand. She's telling Rick I'm abusive? Not just Rick. Travis pulled up more emails. She's been dropping hints to HR, building a paper trail, painting you as this possessive husband who's falling apart after his father's death. According to her, you're unstable, paranoid, tracking her movements. The irony might have been funny if it hadn't made me sick. Here I was, finding actual evidence of her affair, while she fabricated stories about me being paranoid for suspecting her. You know that feeling when someone punches you in the gut and you can't breathe? This was worse. Travis slammed his hand on the desk. This is calculated, David. She's not just having an affair, she's building a narrative. If you'd confronted her without proof, she'd have used it to prove her point. Hell, she probably wanted you to blow up. I remembered how quickly she'd turned my questions around on me, how eager she'd been to paint me as insecure. She's covering her tracks. More than that, she's setting up her escape story. The brave woman fleeing her troubled marriage into the arms of a supportive boss. Travis started pulling out files. We're going to document everything. Every receipt, every text, every flight record, build our own timeline. For the next 3 hours, we pieced it together. Beth's conferences matched perfectly with Rick's business trips. Restaurant charges lined up with photos from the PI. Every lie had a paper trail. We could file now, Travis said, surveying our work. But timing matters. Right now, she thinks she's in control. Thinks she's got everyone fooled. He leaned back, that familiar gleam in his eye. Let's deliver this when it hurts most. I nodded slowly. Make it count. Meanwhile, act normal. Can you do that? Smile like nothing's wrong? That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, practicing. Smiled at my reflection until it looked natural. Rehearsed casual phrases. How was work? Want to grab dinner? Sure, I'll pick up groceries. My father used to say that the hardest part of any job was making it look easy. Never thought I'd be using that advice for this. I was sorting through old invoices in my home office when Beth called. First time in weeks. My rehearsed smile carried into my voice. David? She sounded tentative, almost like her old self. I've been thinking, next week is our anniversary. I kept my voice steady. 25 years. Maybe we could have dinner? Try to talk things through? A pause. The country club's doing a special event. I already made reservations. Of course she had. Probably the same night she'd planned to spend with Rick. Dinner sounds nice, I said, and meant it, just not for the reasons she thought. Really? The relief in her voice was almost convincing. 7 o'clock next Friday? I'll be there. After we hung up, I sat there holding the phone, thinking about all those anniversary dinners over the years, the candlelight, the shared jokes, the plans we'd made. Remember when just hearing her voice made your day better? When you trusted someone so completely that doubt felt like a foreign language? I pulled out my own calendar and marked the date. Then I called Travis. She took the bait, I told him. Anniversary dinner, next Friday, country club. Perfect. I could hear him shuffling papers. You ready for this? I looked at the forgotten anniversary gift still sitting on my desk, wrapped in paper that had faded over the months. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. You ever notice how the biggest moments in life often start with the smallest details? Like picking out the right tie or making sure your shoes are polished, just so. That's how I approached this dinner, methodically, the way I'd plan any major installation job. I called the country club first thing Monday morning. Beth always loved their crystal chandeliers, those fancy place settings with more forks than anyone needs. The anniversary package, I told them. Everything top shelf. The event coordinator practically purred when I mentioned our 25th. We'll set you up in the Magnolia Room, Mr. Halbrook. It's our most romantic setting. Perfect. I pictured Beth's face when she'd walk in. And could you make sure there's champagne chilling? Of course. Any special requests for the flower arrangements? Red roses. Beth's favorite. 2 dozen at the table. Calligraphy pen. The kind of gesture that screams desperate husband trying to win back his wife. I even added a little note, 25 years of memories. Let's make new ones. Dropped it off at her sister's house where she was staying. Beth's response came fast. This means so much to me, David. Thank you for understanding. Understanding? Right. I had to take a walk after reading that one. Meanwhile, Travis was handling the harder part. He called me Tuesday afternoon, voice tight with anticipation. Just met with Marla Callahan. My stomach clenched. How'd she take it? Better than expected, worse than hoped. He sighed. She didn't break down, didn't scream, just sat there getting paler and paler as I showed her everything. Then she asked to see it all again. I could picture it, Marla, always so composed, watching her marriage unravel through hotel receipts and hidden photos. She believe it? Oh yeah, said it explained a lot. Rick's late nights, sudden interest in team-building events. Travis paused. David, she's not just hurt, she's furious. Asked if we had a plan. When I mentioned the anniversary dinner, she didn't even hesitate, said she wants in. That surprised me. She's willing to be there? Her words. I want to see their faces when it all falls apart. Travis chuckled darkly. Think we found our secret weapon. We met Marla the next day at Travis's office. She walked in wearing a simple black dress, spine straight as steel. No tears, no drama, just cold determination. Reminded me of my mother when she caught my brother stealing from her purse. Calm on the surface, fury underneath. Show me everything again, she said, settling into a chair. I want to know exactly what they've been doing. For 2 hours, we laid it all out. The timeline, the photos, the lies they'd told both of us. Marla took notes in precise handwriting, asking sharp questions about dates and locations. When we showed her Beth's emails painting me as abusive, her pen snapped. That's not just an affair, she said, voice like ice. That's character assassination. They were setting you up to take the fall when they went public. She looked at me. You know that, right? I nodded. That's why we're doing this carefully. Good. She pulled out her own phone. Because I have something to add. She showed us Rick's recent credit card statements, jewelry purchases, spa weekends, restaurants way above his pay grade. He's been embezzling from the company to fund their little romance. I found the hidden accounts last night. Travis whistled. That changes things. Indeed. Marla's smile was sharp. So, here's what I suggest. We spent another hour planning the details, the seating arrangement, the timing, who would say what, and when. Travis had already prepared 2 sets of papers, divorce filings for both couples, plus a detailed report for their company's HR department. Beth thinks she's walking into a reconciliation, I explained. She's expecting roses, champagne, probably thinks I'll beg her to come home. Oh, there will be champagne, Marla said. But I don't think anyone will be in the mood to drink it. Later that night, Beth texted me, Looking forward to Friday. I've missed you. I stared at those words for a long time. 5 days until dinner. 5 days of playing the hopeful husband, keeping my voice warm during brief phone calls, acting like a man desperate to save his marriage. I could do that. After all, I'd learned from the best about putting on a show. The country club's dining room buzzed with the usual Friday night crowd. Crystal glasses clinked, silverware tapped against china, and soft jazz floated from the piano in the corner, just like old times. Beth and I had celebrated plenty of special occasions here. Birthdays, promotions, the night I landed my first major commercial contract. Funny how familiar places can feel so different when your whole world's shifted. I checked my watch, 7:28 in the evening. Travis sat to my right, legal documents arranged precisely on the table. Marla perched across from us, back straight, fingers tracing the rim of her water glass. None of us touched the breadbasket. You okay? Travis murmured. I nodded. 25 years of marriage were about to implode in this dining room, but my hands were steady, just ready to get it done. At exactly 7:30, Beth swept through the entrance. She'd gone all-out new dress, hair freshly styled, makeup perfect. Her heels clicked against the hardwood as she approached our usual corner table, smile bright as stage lights. Then she saw who was waiting. The change was instant. Her step faltered. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. Her purse slipped from her shoulder, caught at her elbow. "What?" She looked from face to face, smile crumbling. "What is this?" "Sit down, Beth." My voice came out calmer than I'd expected. She didn't move. "David, what are they doing here? This was supposed to be—" "Your anniversary dinner?" Marla's tone could have frozen hell. "Interesting. Rick told me he was at a leadership conference this weekend." Beth's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. "Please," I gestured to the empty chair. "Sit." She sank into it like her legs had given out. A waiter approached with menus, but Travis waved him off. "Mrs. Halbrook." Marla's fingers slid a thick manila folder across the white tablecloth. "I believe you'll recognize some of these." Beth's hand shook as she opened it. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, screenshots of messages she thought were deleted, and photos, so many photos. Her face went from white to gray. "I can explain," she whispered. "Really?" I leaned forward. "Going to explain the leadership retreats? The secret credit cards? Or maybe you'd like to explain telling Rick I was abusive?" She flinched at that one. "Good." "The thing is," Travis spoke up, voice courtroom calm as he pulled out another folder, "we've got signed statements from your colleagues. Seems you've been quite creative with your storytelling. HR might have some questions about that. And about the company funds Rick's been misappropriating to finance your little getaways." Beth's head snapped up. "He wouldn't." "He did." Marla's smile was arctic. "I found the accounts last week. Very sloppy bookkeeping for a department head." "This can't." Beth's eyes darted between us, looking for an escape route. Finding none. "David, please, we can talk about this." "We're done talking." I nodded to Travis, who slid the final document across the table. "These are divorce papers. You'll find the terms quite generous, considering the circumstances. Sign them tonight, and we keep the evidence of financial misconduct between us. Drag this out," I shrugged. "Well, that's your choice." Beth stared at the papers, mascara starting to smear at the corners of her eyes. "You can't do this to me." "Actually," Marla said, "you did this to yourself. Both of you did." She stood, smoothing her dress. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have my own papers to deliver. Rick should be finishing his conference dinner right about now." Beth's head dropped into her hands. The diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist, Rick's latest gift, I assumed, caught the light, throwing sparkles across the tablecloth like scattered glass. "I'll need those papers signed before you leave," Travis said, placing a pen beside her water glass. "Take your time reading them. We've got all evening." The piano player started a new song, something slow and melancholy. Around us, other diners chatted and laughed, completely unaware that 3 lives were unraveling at table 12. I watched Beth's shoulders shake, remembered all the times I'd comforted her through tears. Not tonight. Tonight I just sat back and let the silence do its work. Beth's fingers traced the rim of her water glass, leaving smudges on the crystal. "This isn't— you don't understand. Things haven't been right between us for years." "Really?" I kept my voice level. "Tell me when they went wrong." "You were distant after your father died. Wrapped up in work. I needed support?" The word tasted bitter. "Like when you held me through the funeral? When you said we'd get through it together?" She flinched. "That's not fair." "No." Travis cut in. "What's not fair is fabricating abuse allegations to justify an affair." He pulled out his tablet, tapped the screen. "Let's review the timeline, shall we?" Beth's jaw tightened. "You hacked my phone. That's illegal." "Actually," Travis smiled that shark smile of his, "your phone was unlocked when you left it on the counter. And since David's name is on the account," he started reading. "March 15th, text to Rick. David's always been controlling. March 22nd. Sometimes I'm scared of his temper. April 3rd. Stop!" Her voice cracked. "Oh, we're just getting started." Travis scrolled down. "Here's a good one. May 1st, dinner at Lorenzo's. Receipt shows you ordered the seafood special. Charged to the corporate card Rick gave you, which, by the way, violates at least 3 company policies. I remembered that night. She'd said she was working late. May 12th, Travis continued. The Grand Hotel downtown, room 412. Interesting how that coincided with your leadership workshop. Want to explain the room service charges? Beth's hands were shaking so bad, now she had to set down her glass. You can't prove. Actually. I reached into my briefcase, pulled out a thick envelope. We can prove everything. The HR report landed between us with a soft thud. Official letterhead, time-stamped photos, bank statements, everything the investigator had gathered, compiled into one damning document. Beth's eyes went wide as she read the cover page. This is addressed to the Ethics Committee at Midwest Financial? Travis nodded. It was submitted electronically an hour ago. Carbon copied to the board of directors. You could have heard a pin drop at our table. Around us, other diners laughed and clinked glasses, celebrating their own anniversaries, birthdays, promotions. None of them noticed the woman falling apart in the corner. You can't. Beth's voice was barely a whisper. My career. Should have thought about that before using company resources to fund your affair. I wasn't even angry anymore. Just tired. Or before lying about your husband to climb the corporate ladder. She grabbed her purse, started to stand. I need to call Rick. Sit down. Travis's tone could have frozen fire. We're not finished. Beth sank back into her chair. Her mascara was starting to run, leaving dark tracks down her cheeks. For a moment, I saw echoes of the woman I'd married, vulnerable, uncertain. But then her eyes hardened, and I remembered this wasn't that woman anymore. Every receipt, Travis said, laying them out one by one. Every hotel booking, every business dinner that wasn't business. And my personal favorite, he held up a printed email. Your request to HR for a private office, right next to Rick's. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Beth's hand trembled as she reached for her water. I didn't mean for it to go this far, I finished. Didn't think you'd get caught or didn't think I'd have the spine to do anything about it? She stared at the HR report, at all those pages documenting her betrayal in cold corporate language, policy violations, ethical breaches, misuse of company resources. The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable. The board meets Monday morning, Travis said. First item on the agenda, review of departmental conduct. He checked his watch. You've got about 36 hours to decide how you want this to play out. Beth's glass slipped from her fingers, water spilling across the pristine tablecloth. A waiter rushed over with napkins, but she didn't seem to notice. Everything, she whispered. You're taking everything. No, Beth. I pushed the divorce papers closer. You gave everything away. I'm just making sure you understand what it cost. I didn't hear about the fallout directly. News like that travels through whispers and sideways glances, especially in a town our size. Travis kept me updated on the official stuff, but the real story unfolded through the grapevine over those first few weeks. Rick's demotion came first. Word was he'd been all set for some fancy VP position, corner office, company car, the works. Instead, they shuffled him off to manage some satellite office 2 towns over. Damage control, pure and simple. You know how corporations work. They'll protect their image before they'll protect any single person, no matter how promising that person seemed. They're calling it a lateral move, Travis told me over coffee one morning. He had this little smirk I hadn't seen since our high school days. But everyone knows what it really is. His wife made sure of that. I nodded, remembering how Marla had handled things. She hadn't just gotten mad, she'd gotten methodical. Turned out she had quite a few friends on the company's board of directors. The kind of friends who play golf together and share pictures of their grandkids. Beth's firing came about a week later. Clean and quiet, just like Rick's demotion. Policy violations was the official term. Funny how clinical they make these things sound, right? But there's nothing clinical about watching someone's carefully constructed world crumble around them. The social fallout hit her harder than the professional one, I think. Remember those weekend brunches she used to host? The book club meetings? The charity committee? One by one, the invitations dried up. The calls went unreturned. Even her sister, who'd always taken her side in everything, started making excuses not to meet. I kept my head down through all of it, focused on what I could control. The HVAC business needed attention after all those weeks of distraction. I hired 2 new technicians, good kids with solid training. Renovated the office too, fresh paint, new desks, updated the logo. Something about a clean workspace helps clear your mind, you know what I mean? One evening, about 3 weeks after everything went down, I was driving back from a late service call. It was one of those perfect autumn nights, crisp air, leaves just starting to turn. I passed by the Golden Crown Hotel, this place where Beth and I used to spend our anniversaries back when things were good. The kind of place with those heavy wooden doors and brass fixtures that remind you of old movies. Maybe it was nostalgia, or maybe just force of habit, but I slowed down as I passed. Through the front windows, I could see into the hotel bar. The lighting was dim, but I'd know her anywhere, Beth, sitting alone at the bar, staring into what looked like a martini. She had on one of her power suits, the kind she started wearing when things with Rick got serious, but something about how she sat there made it look more like armor than clothing. I didn't stop, didn't honk or wave or anything dramatic like that, just kept driving, watching her shrink in my rear-view mirror until she disappeared completely. The sight stuck with me, though, not because I felt sorry for her, but because it reminded me of something my father used to say about karma. It's not the fall that teaches the lesson, son. It's the landing. Back at the office, I had work to focus on. The new business cards had just come in that morning. Simple, clean design, with raised lettering. David Halbrook, Sons, Owner, Builder. I ran my thumb across the embossed surface, feeling each letter. 25 years of marriage had ended, but my company was just getting started on its next chapter. You'd think seeing Beth alone like that would have stirred up something in me. Anger, satisfaction, maybe even pity. But, honestly, I just felt tired. Tired of the drama, tired of the memories, tired of letting someone else's choices define my days. I had contracts to review, employees to train, and a business to run. Life has a way of moving forward, whether you're ready or not. You know what's strange about losing someone? It's not just the big moments you miss, it's the little things. The coffee cup left in the sink, the sound of the shower running in the morning, even the arguments about what to watch on TV. For weeks after Beth moved out, I kept finding these empty spaces where our life together used to be. But here's the thing about empty spaces. They don't stay empty forever. I started sleeping better, which surprised me. No more lying awake wondering about text messages or late meetings. No more pretending not to notice when she slipped into bed at midnight, smelling of someone else's cologne. The silence in the house stopped feeling hollow and started feeling peaceful. One morning, while sorting through some old papers, I found that booking confirmation Beth had made for their anniversary getaway a week at Crystal Cove Resort up in the mountains. 5-star everything, ocean views, the works. The kind of place that makes you feel like royalty just walking through the lobby. I almost tossed it, but something made me pause. Maybe it was spite, or maybe it was just the need for closure, but I called the resort. Turns out the reservation was still valid and transferable. I sat there staring at my phone for a good 5 minutes before making another call. "Hello, Marla. It's David. I've got an odd question for you." She laughed when I explained my idea. Not a bitter laugh, but something warmer. "You know what? That's either the craziest or the most sensible thing I've heard all month. Let me check my calendar." 2 weeks later, we were sitting on the resort's oceanfront terrace, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that'd make any HVAC guy appreciate nature's own climate control. Marla had this way about her, elegant but unpretentious. She wore simple clothes and barely any makeup, the complete opposite of what Beth had become. "You know what kills me?" Marla said, swirling her wine glass. "All those charity galas I hosted, all those times Rick said he had to work late, they were probably laughing at me." I nodded, remembering similar moments. Beth used to text during our dinners, said it was work emergencies. I actually felt guilty for interrupting her. The things we tell ourselves, right? She shook her head. I kept thinking if I was just more understanding, more supportive. That's what they wanted us to think, I cut in, surprising myself with the edge in my voice. That it was somehow our fault. We spent hours talking like that, trading stories, connecting dots we'd both missed. It wasn't romantic. We weren't looking for that. This was something different. Something more like rehabilitation, I guess you'd call it. One evening, walking along the beach after dinner, Marla stopped suddenly. I need to thank you, David. For what? For showing me the truth. Even though it hurt. Even though it would have been easier to just... She trailed off, watching the waves. Keep pretending? I finished. Yeah. She turned to face me. But you know what? I'm not angry anymore. I'm just free. I knew exactly what she meant. The weight of suspicion, of second-guessing every late night and business trip, of wondering if you're crazy for doubting, it was gone. Like finally setting down a heavy toolbox after carrying it for miles. On our last night, we ordered champagne. Not the bottle Beth and Rick had reserved, something better. We sat on the balcony, watching stars appear over the ocean. To peace, Marla said, raising her glass. To peace, I echoed, and meant it. You might think this story ends with some kind of romantic twist, but that's not what this trip was about. It was about two people who'd been through the same storm, finding solid ground again. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting better. Looking out over that darkening ocean, I remembered something my father told me when I was learning the trade. Son, the best repairs aren't the ones that just fix what's broken. They're the ones that make the whole system run better than before. Sitting there with Marla, both of us a little bruised but healing, I finally understood what he meant. Coming back from Crystal Cove felt different than I'd expected. The house didn't echo with memories anymore, it just felt like home. A place ready for its next chapter. You know that feeling when you finish a big installation job, and everything's humming just right? That's what I was aiming for with my life now. First order of business was the company rebrand. I'd been mulling it over during those quiet evenings alone, thinking about legacy and what really mattered. The old magnetic signs on my work trucks just said, Halbrook HVAC Services. Simple, straightforward, like I used to be. But something about that didn't fit anymore. I remember sitting at my desk one morning, coffee getting cold while I sketched out ideas on a notepad. Beth used to joke about how I'd never need a fancy logo since word of mouth kept us busy anyway. The memory didn't sting like it used to. Instead, it sparked something. David Halbrook, Sons. I wrote it down, then sat back and looked at it. Not sons by blood. I never had kids of my own, but something just as meaningful. I'd been getting calls from young guys wanting to learn the trade, and two of them showed real promise. Mike and Chris, both in their early 20s, eager to work and learn. The next day, I called them both in for a meeting. You should have seen their faces when I laid out my plan. Mike, the quieter one, just kept nodding, while Chris couldn't stop grinning. You mean like apprenticeships? Chris asked, leaning forward in his chair. Real, proper training? More than that, I told them. I'm looking at succession planning. Someone's got to take over eventually, and it might as well be people who care about doing things right. The new logo went up the following week. Nothing fancy, just clean lettering with a simple house outline. But seeing those trucks roll out each morning with David Halbrook's Sons on the side, well, that felt like putting the final piece in place. Training them became my new focus. Every morning we'd go over the day's jobs, and I'd share all those little tricks you only learn from decades in the field. How to spot a failing compressor before it gives out completely. The right way to talk to worried homeowners. The importance of triple-checking your work, even when you're tired and it's been a long day. Always remember, I told them one afternoon while we were installing a new system, we're not just fixing machines. We're taking care of people's homes, their comfort, their peace of mind. Between jobs, I started clearing out the attic. Found boxes of Beth's old things up there, designer clothes she'd forgotten about, photo albums from parties I'd rather forget, even that fancy cappuccino maker she just had to have but never used. Funny how things that once seemed so important can turn into just stuff. I didn't make a show of it. No dramatic driveway bonfire or angry dump runs. Just carefully packed everything into boxes and drove them to the women's shelter across town. The director there, Sarah, gave me a knowing look when I dropped them off. "This is going to help a lot of people starting over," she said quietly. "Good," I replied. "That's exactly what they're meant for." Back home, the empty attic didn't feel like a void. It felt like space for something new. I converted part of it into a proper office, with a drafting table where I could teach the boys about reading blueprints and planning installations. The rest I turned into storage for spare parts, organized, labeled, everything in its place. The business started growing in ways I hadn't expected. Word got around about how I was training the next generation, and suddenly we were getting calls from all over the county. Other contractors started sending their tough jobs our way. "If anyone can figure it out," they'd say, "it's Halbrook's sons." Every time I heard that sons part, it reminded me that sometimes the family you build is stronger than the one you're born into or married into. Mike and Chris weren't just employees anymore. They were the future of everything I'd built, and watching them grow into their roles felt right in a way I couldn't quite explain. The Chamber of Commerce letter sat on my desk for 3 days before I finally opened it. They wanted me to speak at their annual Small Business Excellence Dinner, something about resilience in adversity and community leadership. I had to chuckle at that. The old me would have jumped at the chance, mostly because Beth always loved those networking events. Remember those fancy dinners? Everyone dressed up, trading business cards like they were made of gold, laughing too loud at jokes that weren't funny. Beth used to shine at those things. Me? I always felt like a guy in a rental tux, no matter what I was wearing. I called Sandra at the chamber and let her down easy. "Thanks, but I'll have to pass. Got 2 apprentices who need my full attention right now." "But David," she pressed, "people want to hear your story, the way you handled everything, rebuilt your brand." "That's just it," I cut in, keeping my voice gentle. "I didn't do it for anyone else's benefit. Sometimes the quietest victories are the sweetest." She tried a few more angles, but I stayed firm. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about how different things felt now. A year ago, I would have been wrestling with anger, maybe even tempted to use that platform to set the record straight. But now, the thought of standing up there, rehashing old wounds for a crowd of strangers, it just felt hollow. The mail truck rumbled past my window around noon, and I grabbed the stack from the box without much thought. Bills, flyers, the usual junk, and then an envelope with familiar handwriting. Marla's. You know that moment when you see something unexpected and your stomach does a little flip? Not from fear, just anticipation? That's what hit me as I sat down at my kitchen table, letter opener in hand. Inside was a single sheet of cream-colored paper, the kind you'd use for something important. Marla's words were careful, deliberate. "Dear David, I've been meaning to write this for a while. The dust has settled now, and I've had time to reflect on everything that happened. What strikes me most isn't the betrayal, though that cut deep, but rather how different people showed their true colors through it all. You were the only one who never made it ugly. No public scenes, no vengeful posts, no character assassination. Just quiet, dignity, and truth. I wanted you to know that your decency didn't go unnoticed. It helped me find my own path through the mess. Rick's living in Cincinnati now. I heard he's dating someone from his new office. Some patterns don't change, I suppose. But I've changed. I'm stronger, clearer about what I want. I hope you found some peace, too. With gratitude. Marla." I read it twice, then folded it carefully and slipped it into my desk drawer. She was right. I hadn't wanted to make things ugly. Not because I'm some saint, but because dignity was the one thing they couldn't take unless I gave it away. That evening, after checking tomorrow's work orders and sending the boys their assignments, I noticed something on my bookshelf. That anniversary gift from Beth, still wrapped, still waiting. How long had it been? 5 years? 6? I picked it up, feeling its weight. The paper was dusty now, the corners slightly crushed. For a moment, I considered just tossing it, unopened. But something made me pause. Maybe it was Marla's letter, or maybe just time doing its work. The wrapping came away easily, revealing a watch box. Inside was a silver timepiece, classic style, the kind that would have impressed at all those business dinners I used to hate. I turned it over, and there it was, an engraving. Time heals all wounds. I barked out a laugh. The irony wasn't lost on me. Beth probably chose those words thinking they were profound, romantic even. Now they read like a prophecy she never meant to make. Setting the watch down, I glanced at my wrist, at the basic digital Timex I'd worn for decades. It might not be fancy, but it kept perfect time, never needed winding, and had seen me through every installation and repair job without complaint. Kind of like me, I suppose. The morning sun caught the fresh paint just right as I walked into my office. 3 coats of Mountain Lake blue, my youngest apprentice, Joey, had insisted it would look more professional than the old beige. Kid had an eye for detail, I'll give him that. What really grabbed your attention, though, was that new logo. Centered on the wall behind my desk, gold letters against deep blue. David Halbrook, Sons, Owner, Builder. Simple, strong, honest, just the way I'd always run things. You know that feeling when something just clicks into place? That's what hit me as I straightened the diploma frames along the side wall. 25 years of certifications and awards, telling the story of a career built one furnace at a time. But it was that fresh logo that made everything feel right. I settled into my chair, new leather, another upgrade I'd finally allowed myself, and pulled out the morning's invoices. The stack was thicker than usual. Word had gotten around about our work, and not just because of the drama. People appreciated how we handled things, showed up on time, did the job right, treated their homes with respect. Through my office window, I watched Mike and Joey, my apprentices, greeting Mrs. Davidson in the parking lot. Good kids. Mike, fresh out of tech school, had this natural way with customers, reminded me of myself at that age. And Joey? 22, eager to learn, already talking about getting his master's certification. They both reached out with firm handshakes, professional but friendly. Mrs. Davidson smiled, clearly at ease. I glanced down at my desk calendar. Full bookings for the next 3 weeks. Had to turn down 2 jobs yesterday. The kind of problem every business owner wants. My eyes drifted to the corner of the desk where that old anniversary gift still sat, gathering dust. Funny how something so small could carry so much weight. I'd thought about throwing it out dozens of times, especially after everything came to light. But keeping it there, wrapped and waiting, served a purpose. Not as a reminder of Beth, God knows I'd moved past that, but as a symbol of what I'd overcome. The whole town knew the story now, of course. How Beth and Rick's professional relationship had crashed and burned spectacularly. Last I heard, Rick had been quietly shuffled to some satellite office in Cincinnati. Corporate's way of burying their embarrassment, I suppose. Beth? She'd tried to spin it, play the victim, but the evidence was too solid. HR doesn't look kindly on department heads sleeping with their direct reports, especially when there's documented proof of lying about abuse to cover it up. My phone buzzed, text from Joey about the Davidson job. Kid had already spotted the issue. Condensation line needed rerouting. Smart. I typed back a quick, good catch, and smiled. This was what mattered now. Teaching, building, moving forward. The morning light shifted, catching the logo again. Sons. Not that Mike and Joey were my actual sons, but they might as well be. They had the same drive I'd had at their age, same commitment to doing things right. When I'd added that part to the company name, it wasn't just about rebranding, it was about legacy. I pulled open my desk drawer to grab the new office keys, had to make copies for the boys. They'd earned that trust. The metal caught the light, fresh and unscratched. Like everything else in here, they represented something new, something better. That old wrapped gift caught my eye again. Maybe I'd open it someday. Maybe I wouldn't. But its presence reminded me of something crucial. Loyalty isn't about staying quiet when things go wrong. It's not about swallowing pain to keep the peace. Real loyalty, the kind that matters, starts with being true to yourself. Through the window, I watched Mike explaining the day's schedule to Mrs. Davidson. Joey was already pulling tools from the truck, efficient and focused. They worked well together, these boys. Built on each other's strengths. Reminded me every day why I'd chosen this path. I straightened a final frame, checked my watch, the same reliable Timex I'd worn for decades, and smiled. Some people might have expected me to be bitter after everything, to let the betrayal define me. But that's not how you build something lasting. You do it brick by brick, day by day, staying true to who you are. Loyalty doesn't mean silence, I murmured, running my finger along the edge of that wrapped gift. It means you don't betray yourself. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.